This video is part of a docuseries detailing stories of viral videos and clips from the internet. I'm breaking them down to provide some context for what you may or may not come across with internet access. Please keep in mind this is an educational series informing the public on real news events. These stories are intended for mature audiences and viewer discretion is advised.
Since I made the original video on quantum, many people reached out with more information. So we're going to go ahead and do a part 2 video breaking down how quantum's operation got started, and more importantly, how it came to an end. If you have not already seen part 1, go watch the last YouTube video we made so you know what we're talking about today. Quick reminder, this story is hard to track and confirm details on, so a lot of this information comes from people's best educated guesses. Do not perceive any of this information as real or accurate. Adam Khalifa, better known as Quantum, is now a 20-year-old scammer who has pulled off the largest publicly known Telegram scam yet, with over $1.6 million in confirmed losses. At the time I was making part 1, Adam, or Quantum, was only 19 years old, but he has since turned 20. But who is Quantum, and how did he get started? Supposedly, Adam Khalifa, better known as Quantum, was born in Canada to a very wealthy family. He later left Canada after receiving what is believed to be a gun charge and fled to Los Angeles, California, where he received another warrant for arrest for unknown reasons and left again to go to Kazakhstan. This is where he began building his reputation by telling people he was homeless living in Russia and came from the ground up by doing work for the Russian mafia. Most people believe this story about being in the mafia was a lie to make people respect him more. However, this tactic worked, or could be partly true, because Quantum somehow got his hands on hard goods or made the connections to convince others he had hard goods to sell. Not long after being in the game and a few successful transactions, Adam, or Quantum, was able to build a shield around his name through a good reputation with bigger vendors that would later vouch for Quantum. And with this new reputation, he was able to build a network to further expand his services and clients. Quantum built a list of sources to source goods from and used its clientele to make a network that he could automate orders through. Quantum would receive orders for goods along with the money for the goods and use his sources to fulfill the orders for his clients, basically dropshipping but with illicit goods. So Quantum would receive an order for, let's say, $100 as example, and then use his sources to find the goods for $60, who would then ship the goods to the client, and Quantum would keep the remaining 40. But as things grew and got harder to manage, deliveries would start arriving sometimes months late. This became known within the network, but people still relied on the network for the wide range of goods and the team staff. And I think this is where things started to go wrong. With all this money from different people coming Quantum's way and deliveries often coming late, there was a good opportunity for Quantum to collect a ton of money from as many people as possible and completely exit the network without fulfilling any of the orders, which is exactly what would end up happening. At the same time, Quantum had all this money coming in. His wife was telling him to exit the game as it was getting too risky for him. Quantum disclosed this dispute between his wife with a few of his friends in the network, which at the time did not raise any alarms, but it probably should have, because there was a potential for Quantum to exit the network, but at the same time he was still receiving orders with money. This is where Frank comes into the story. Adam went to one of the known members of the network, who went by the name Frank, and offered to sell the whole Quantum network to Frank. Frank agreed to the deal and purchased Quantum's channel without anyone else in the network knowing about it. This is where the rug got pulled. Frank sent a message in the Quantum network telling people he was the new owner of the channel and that he was not Quantum. At this time, the Quantum networking channel was completely deleted. This threw everyone off in the network, and everyone started to realize Quantum had exited with everyone's money who had an open order. This was over 1.2 million in confirmed losses for everyone inside the network, but numbers have since raised to 1.6 million total lost. Frank, who had just bought the channel, supposedly did not know about the money missing on the open orders and that Adam would exit scam. But some people believe he was given hush money from Adam to not tell people Quantum was exit selling the network. Now this is where the new information comes to an end. There is still no update on Adam, where he is, or what he's up to now. It is known he was a Kazakhstan resident for the first half of 2023, but people believe he is now in Russia. There are definitely people still looking for him, so there's good potential for a Part 3 update, but as of now, the chances are looking slim, as so little information is known about him currently. Moving on from Quantum, this is where we get into the rest of the video with an unrelated but I think an interesting story.
I told you my dudes not shit. I told you it's gonna get. We don't play with no regular nigga. On my butter. We do it. Don't play my slide. On folks great and we'll guess like that. Switchy. No talking. No cap. No talking. Switch game. 3 switches right here. And I put the bitch. That's just enough right there. That's enough. 1, 2, 3. That's enough. Yeah, big we don't even get our shit on. We don't even get it.
This your car, right? So whose is this? With automatic switch on it.
Adam apart, so you got it clear over there again.
What about you? You got a Fort Carter Casilco license? No.
What you just saw was a series of videos with multiple Glocks equipped with an automatic sear on the back of the slide, better known as a switch. The switch is used to turn a standard semi-automatic Glock into a machine gun fully automatic Glock capable of shooting up to 1,200 rounds per minute.
On you.
As you can hear and see from the videos, the sound of a switch is very distinct in a gunfight and can also offer a distinct advantage when it comes to cover fire due to the high rate of fire and also just letting off the most rounds the fastest. Now let's go over some laws. Because the Glock sear is an attachment that turns a semi-automatic firearm into a machine gun, the device itself is considered a machine gun and is not legally available to buy for civilians. People can still legally own Glock switches by going through the ATF to acquire a federal firearms license, and then once again going through the ATF to acquire a special operations taxpayer's license, allowing people to either buy, sell, or manufacture NFA items depending upon the type of license you get. So what is an NFA firearm or an NFA item? In 1934 and in 1989, NFA acts were passed requiring special registrations for suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, machine guns, destructive devices, and what's considered any other weapons. Now, if a weapon happens to fall into any of those categories, it requires a special license in order to obtain. There is an exception, however. Guns that were not imported after 1986 and registered with the federal government before May 19th of 1986 are considered transferable and can be purchased by passing a background check and filling out a Form 4. Now, going this route is an easier way to obtain NFA items, but because there are a limited amount of guns that were registered before 1986 and a huge demand for these guns, the prices are extremely high. For example, a transferable M16 is well above $30,000. Going back to the Glock sear, the Glock switch was invented in 1996 by 22-year-old Jorge Leon, who was hoping to give the military and police units an advantage in counterterrorism. So why am I talking about switches in the first place? Well, in 2020, over 4,000 Glock switches were seized by the police and ATF, and those numbers have only gone up. They have become extremely common in the streets and gangs as Glocks are a hot commodity, and finding a switch will turn it automatic. However, because the Glock sear was not invented until 1996, only SOT licensees are legally allowed to own them. There are no transferable switches, making them harder to legally obtain. But because the patent information for the sear was public, and they are a small piece that can be produced with a CNC machine or a 3D printer and later added to the Glock itself, people have found ways to get their hands on them illegally.
You said getting it patented in the United States was the biggest mistake you had made. Why do you say that?
Yes, I mentioned that because I made a deep analysis on that. What is the office of that handles all the knowledge, all the patents of serious or sensitive technologies, and make it public? Everything, you can read it. everything. So there is no kind of control or something that have to be kept on some way secrecy, because the world today it's so open to the information, and there are some sensitive technologies that has to be kept. By just seeing the drawings, they can reverse the technology and they can make it. So it's part of the problem right now. I never thought back in 1996, I took so much effort in describing and detailing, drawing in perspectives, in everything of the idea. And years after and years later, all that effort becomes a safe way for mobs or safe way for underground interests in converting illegally those hundreds of thousands of Glocks that are in the streets.
For a long time, they were being produced in Mexico and China and being shipped into the US to later be sold. Those caught with the Switch modified handgun can be prosecuted federally. The penalties for possession of an unregistered machine gun in the United States are up to $250,000 fine and prison sentences of up to 10 years. Recently, the inventor of the Glock, Jorge Leon, came out in an interview discussing his inventions, and I will now play that for you.
Kind of like Oppenheimer with the nuclear weapon? Or do you not feel responsible for that because you made an invention where you couldn't have foreseen the internet and copying?
Yes, like I don't feel happy. I'm honestly to you, I don't feel happy. But it's something that occurred, something that I made, something that in those years I was so like willing to do something good for the future. I was willing to cooperate with the security worldwide to do something good for the well-being of everyone. That's my only goal that moment and today, and will be the same goal forever in my way of living.
I will link the full interview for those of you interested. I found it somewhat mind-blowing putting myself in Jorge's shoes and thinking about what it must have been like to have invented something like that in the 90s and then having it being replicated for bad use all over the world today. I think the Oppenheimer comparison is interesting because it takes a lot of resources to do what Oppenheimer did, but today the Glock switch is being made cheaply with a 3D printer. I know this video is kind of random and all over the place, but I wanted to update you all more on Quantum, and then that interview with the inventor of the Glock switch came out recently, so I just kind of thought it was an interesting story to share as well. But I hope you all enjoyed, and I thank you all for watching.